January 12th, 2017, and I have to talk about this. I was almost gonna skip this and go to bed because I work in the morning. As you probably saw, I'm actually in my pajamas. But my friends Kevin and Jason from Team Beardage were like, "No, you have to stay up." So we watched it, and we were on Skype at the same time, so we were talking about everything. And wow, I feel like this is an E3 caliber presentation, if not even a little bit bigger. This was amazing. I loved this presentation. So I'm going to go over kind of like a little bit chronological, but I kind of then just threw in things here and there. For the most part, I was thoroughly impressed with what they're going to be eventually doing in terms of games with the console itself. Whereas there's not really a lot for launch right now. There is one game that they pretty much confirmed for launch. I think it was the only game that they confirmed for launch, and that's probably the weakest point, is that they didn't really show anything else for launch. I'll get to that eventually, what that game is. I mean, it's a doozy, but I really was hoping that they'd show more. So anyway, let's get the show on the road. So the price point for the Nintendo Switch is $299 US, which would probably be around $400 Canadian. So that's quite a hefty price. Well, it's not. It's I mean, in Canada it is, but it's about the same thing. It's less than an Xbox One and a PS4, so that is good. I was hoping, we were all kind of hoping for like $250 US, but you can't complain for a new console to be going at $300 US. That's nothing to complain about. The launch date is March 3rd, whereas a lot of people were thinking that it could have been at the end of March, but it is March 3rd. It's coming up so soon. Then they talked about the controllers themselves. They kind of show that they're coming in different colors. That's all right. I like that there's actual like extra pads that you can press when you split them up, and you have like just the console by itself with like just the one analog stick. There's actual like buttons that you can press, which would be your L buttons. I thought that was actually really cool. That you can press kind of like if you're holding it, like I'd have to actually have the controller in my hand to show you. They also show that there's like an extension to the rumble in terms of they can make it feel as if there is a glass in a cup inside your controller in the Joy-Con. I have no idea why they would do that, but it's there. So they're kind of just improving upon that feeling, I guess. Or then they could have like 3 ice cubes. We were all like, why would you do that? Like, it's cool. Is it required? Is it something that we need in games? I don't think so at the moment. I don't know any time where you would actually really need that. Like, if I'm playing a game and it's like Grand Theft Auto and I go to grab like a scotch on the rocks, I can feel it, I guess, when my character drinks it. But I don't know any other time that you would need that. But it's there. Then they showed off some games that were kind of like really lame. It started off really, really slow. But then after that, after these 2 games, they really ramped it up. One of them was 1-2 Switch, which is basically a game where instead of looking at the actual TV itself, you look at your opponent's eyes, as in like you're kind of watching them the entire time and actually battling them in all these like mini games. The mini games don't look that exciting. Like the trailer, I thought was just really boring. Like I was just like, no, I don't care for any of this. And then they actually showed Nintendo Land at one point, and Jason and I both got really excited. Like, whoa, they're gonna have games like that. And they're like, this is how we used to play, like watching the TV, but now you watch your opponent's eyes, and we're like, oh, it's pretty bad when you get excited for a Wii U game when you're watching a Switch thing. That's one of the few other negatives that they had here. I mean, it might be fun. It's still mini games, and I mean. If it was packed in with the Nintendo Switch, I think it'd be much more well received. But by the looks of it, they never mentioned it. And they actually did talk about what's included with the Nintendo Switch, and they didn't mention any games at all. So I don't, at this point, think that it is included. They showed another game called ARMS, which is like a boxing game, basically, where your arms just really extend really far. It looked a little bit interesting, like more so than 1-2 Switch, but I still wasn't really sold on it. Like if it was a pack-in game, cool. But I'm not going to go out of my way to pick it up, even for like $10, like when it goes down on sale or something. I don't see myself really wanting this game. But then they picked up right after that They showed Splatoon 2, which is coming summer 2017. So it's not too far off, but I hate it when they say it's launch summer 2017, when we know that the system's coming out in March. Because that to me, it's launch window, but I don't consider it to be launch at all. Like that's not when I'm talking. March 3rd is launch. If you get the system on March 3rd, you're not going to be playing that game Splatoon 2 for like at least a few months, at least. So to me, that's not launch. It's good that they have a game out in the summer. Definitely, you do need that to keep going, like Steam to keep going. But that is not launch. But the game looks awesome. It basically looks exactly like Splatoon does, but with a bunch of different maps and also different guns. And the guns actually looked really fun. There was one that was like a big giant cloud of paint coming down. That was really cool. There was one that was basically you shot out these big gigantic rockets. That was cool. There was one that was like a big gigantic spray from what it looked like. So the guns do look different. And it's kind of like, you know, the difference between any like, in terms of multiplayer, like, you know, a new Halo, a new Battlefield, a new Call of Duty. Well, Battlefield, I guess, switches it up to an extent enough. But anyway, it kind of looked like that. Just a new extension of the game, but it did look pretty good. And I am looking forward to that game. And then the game that made me the most excited in terms of what they showed, not in terms of like, there's a few games here that I was like, oh, there might be one other, but there's this game that they showed. I freaked out. Like I'm pretty sure that I screamed during my conversation with Kevin and Jason because I was just so blown away. Kevin and I had talked about this just before we started watching it. We kind of talked for like half an hour or an hour. And we were talking about Super Mario. What are they going to do with that? And we were talking about maybe making it a open world, and Kevin was saying that he really wanted something more like Super Mario 64. I was like, yeah, I want anything like Super Mario 64 or Super Mario Galaxy. An open world Mario would be kind of cool, but just not something like New Super Mario Bros. Or the 3D games that they've been making lately. They're okay games, but I wanted something like a good single player game. And then they showed Super Mario Odyssey. And that game, they showed him in like, I think it was New York or something like that, but in a city, and he's jumping around, and it looked was so open, and then he's jumping around on top of the skyscrapers, and he was on top of this gigantically high skyscraper, and he just jumps off the roof, and I was like, it looked insane. It looked like Grand Theft Auto with Mario. It was awesome. That's where I screamed. And I felt my eyes just bulge out of their sockets. That looks insane. So I cannot wait for that game. However, it is coming out holiday 2017. I mean, it's going to sell like mad, and that is, I guess, a good time to be releasing it. But if they would have had that at launch, wow, that would have been insane. But yeah, the game looks amazing. And then they also showed a bunch of different other worlds that look much more like Mario. Like, it wasn't just all like, because it was like real people walking around in New York or wherever they were, but it was in the city, and it was like real people plus like little Mario. But yeah, it was blown away with that. Next up, they showed, then I kind of don't have them in chronological order. They showed that there's a new No More Heroes game. They showed a new Shin Megami Tensei game coming out for the Nintendo Switch. They did confirm that Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2 are coming for it. I don't know if this is packaged together because they didn't really elaborate on that, but it kind of, the way that they kind of showed 1 and 2 just kind of like in the title, and I'm thinking that it might be the two of them together. They did confirm that Dragon Quest 10 and 11 are coming to it. I hope that this also comes to the West, although they did confirm that it is not going to be region locked, which is good if you import games. I have never imported games, and I don't think I would, unless it was like it came out in Europe, and then I would probably import it over, because then I don't want to be like playing a Japanese game because I don't know a word of Japanese. I don't know anything. So to me, the allure for that isn't that strong. But if something comes out in Europe and doesn't come out in the West, then I could maybe import that. And I really hope that these Dragon Quest games do come out to the West, because it was a Japanese conference that we were watching that also had like a guy talking in English translating. So it was just, I don't know if these are all coming to the West as well. I hope that they are. But yeah, Dragon Quest X, I think Dragon Quest X is an MMO. But I'm looking forward to whatever the other Dragon Quest is, Dragon Quest 11, if it's a traditional Dragon Quest game, in the sense that it's not an MMO. And then they showed something that I got super excited for. Fire Emblem Warriors. They might have shown something else before that. Yeah, but the Fire Emblem Warriors, they kind of just hinted at it, that there's a new Fire Emblem game coming out, but it's called Warriors, and we're thinking that it might be more like, Dragon Quest Warriors or like Dragon Quest Hero. Is it Dragon Quest Heroes? I can't remember. But whatever that game is, or Hyrule Warriors, so like a Dynasty Warriors type of game. I'd be okay with that, but I said when they first made Hyrule Warriors, it was a great idea to have that, but I don't think that they should be like, I hope that they don't just start making warrior games for everything, and that's kind of looks like what they're going to be doing, although if it's Fire Emblem, I'm still going to like it and play it probably. And I think what they showed just before that was Xenoblade 2, an actual proper sequel to Xenoblade's, like Xenoblade Chronicles, I guess, instead of Xenoblade X, Xenoblade Chronicles X. I think that it's just going to be a proper sequel to Xenoblade. It looked awesome. It looked really good in terms of Xenoblade. I don't know exactly what's going to be going on there. And they didn't really talk about Fire Emblem or Xenoblade when they're going to be coming out, but they are coming. Then they showed probably the other big thing that I freaked out about, almost as much as Super Mario, but I didn't scream. And that is a new Square Enix game called Octopath Traveller. I believe that's what it's called. And it had like 2D sprites, an RPG with 2D sprites on Nintendo Switch. Sign me up. Actually, at the beginning, Jason and I were thinking that it might have been Bravely Default. Like, it looked very much like Bravely Default, but then they said that it's called Project Octopath Traveller. So, either way, super excited for that. Like, that looks awesome. And what this reminds me of is that it makes me think that, 3DS is slowly going to die out. And this is the Switch is going to replace the Wii U and the 3DS. In terms of, we're going to get games that could have been on the 3DS in terms of, it's 2D technically, but a little bit more ramped up a little bit. But I still like small games like that. I like going back and playing 2D games, and especially RPGs. Like, this just looked freaking awesome, and I cannot wait for that. Then they showed a few other games, like there was a Street Fighter game, like an old school Street Fighter game, and also Bomberman. They showed them quickly. Bomberman looked pretty cool. That I think would be really fun on the Switch if they have multiplayer. And they did say that they are going to have a good online system, but in the fall of 2017, it's going to start charging people. Once again, yeah, they're finally getting online, but then they're also charging us. Like, that was the one good thing that Nintendo had. Like, the few games that were online. I hope that if they're going to be doing this, like, pretty much any game that has local multiplayer will have actual multiplayer, like online. That is if they're going to be charging, they better make all those games like that. And then they ended it off with a new trailer for the Legend of Zelda, and it looks fantastic. I've only seen like one trailer from the new Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I was like, yeah, that looks pretty darn good. It's a new Zelda and it looks exciting. This trailer though blew me away. It, like, we kind of like, all the three of us when we were watching it all talked throughout everything, but for that trailer none of us talked. We only started talking at the very end, like once it was done, and it was like an experience, I would say. It looks amazing, and that is the only confirmed launch game. I don't think 1-2 Switch and ARMS was confirmed for launch, but I could see it being there. But yeah, Zelda is going to be a launch game. That's technically really all you need. Oh, they also had Skyrim. They did mention Skyrim. I don't think that they mentioned if it was going to be a launch game or not. I could see it being a launch game because they have it for Xbox One and PS4, so that could make sense to me too. So at the moment, the only one is Zelda, but I could also see Skyrim, 1-2 Switch and ARMS being launch games, because Splatoon is summer, Super Mario Odyssey is holiday 2017, No More Heroes, Shin Megami Tensei, Dragon Quest, Fire Emblem, Octopath Traveller, Xenoblade. I think those are going to be much later, like probably not even 2017, just much down the road, which is fine. And then they did show Mario Kart, but they didn't really elaborate on anything. Like, they kind of just showed it as a trailer with a bunch of other trailers. So I think that that's coming too. If that I could also potentially see at launch as well. That's the only negative, really, other than like 1-2 Switch and ARMS, which I thought were just kind of lame. Those are the only negatives, that they didn't really confirm what else is coming out at launch. I mean, pretty much everyone's just going to be playing Zelda anyway, and that's kind of all you need, but it's still good to have like one or two other big enough games, like maybe one other big game and then like another smaller game. I think that would work a little bit better. But anyway, that was the Nintendo Switch presentation. Freaking awesome! I can't believe how good it looked. Definitely the things for me that I'm super excited for: the new Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Odyssey, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Octopath Traveller. Octopath Traveller is like so high up there, just because it's so, it's another throwback, and it looked like Bravely Default, made by Square Enix. Awesome. So let me know in the comments below what you think about the Nintendo Switch presentation, and as the weeks go by, I guess that we're gonna finally get to see what the actual launch games are, and I might do another video for that. So anyway, thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in.
Beardage.